I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, May the 14th, 2013. Newseum, a journalism museum in Washington, D.C., has reversed its decision to honor two Hamas cameramen and did not include them in a ceremony honoring journalists that were killed in the line of duty in 2012 that was held yesterday morning. The two, Mahmoud al-Kumi and Hussam Salama, were killed in November in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza during Israel's conflict with Hamas. They were employed by Al-Aqsa TV, an arm of Hamas, which was designated by the U.S. State Department as a terror organization. Newseum said they decided to reevaluate honoring the Hamas cameramen pending further investigation after serious questions were raised as to whether the two were truly journalists or whether they were engaged in terrorist activities. Earlier yesterday, the American Jewish Committee and the Anti-Defamation League expressed their shock at Newseum's decision to honor the Hamas cameramen in the first place and called for the museum to reconsider. Following Newseum's reversal, both groups said they were pleased the museum did the right thing, but also urged further scrutiny when distinguishing between legitimate journalists and news outlets and those that use TV and the Internet to incite hatred and advocate terror. The Israeli embassy also said they appreciated Newseum's decision to reconsider. The embassy posted on their Facebook page that the decision reflects a core journalistic value that the museum works to honor, the pursuit of understanding the full story. In the midst of revelations that have come out in the last week in which the IRS has admitted it has targeted groups associated with conservative parties, such as the Tea Party organizations, World Jewish Daily has published a piece that first appeared in the Jewish press in New York that the IRS has also targeted groups with the word Israel in its title, especially those which seem to oppose the administration's Mideast policy. Those revelations have been extremely upsetting to American Jews across the board. Although not relating directly to the charges regarding Israel, but in general, the Religious Action Center in Washington, D.C. said the IRS's focused attention on groups with apparently politically conservative names and ideologies was deeply concerning. The RAC said the IRS must establish neutral guidelines for its work that do not favor or disadvantage any political ideology. Immediately following this news update, Mark Golub will be speaking to Lori Lowenthal Marcus, president of Z Street, whose application for nonprofit status was put on hold by the IRS after being told that the IRS was looking into Israel nonprofits that may have positions on the peace process, which put it at odds with administration policy. You can see Mark Golub's conversation with Lori Lowenthal Marcus immediately following this news update. Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky responded to last week's protests at the Western Wall, saying they, quote, dramatically reinforce the urgent need for a sustainable solution which will allow any Jew, group of Jews, or Jewish community to pray at the Western Wall according to their own custom. The Jewish Agency head was referring to massive protests by ultra-Orthodox demonstrators against the Women of the Wall group this past Friday, where thousands of the demonstrators spit at and threw garbage at the women's prayer group. Friday was the first time the group prayed at the holy site since a Jerusalem court ruled they could do so legally. Israel police, who have in the past arrested the women for violating the local customs of the wall, Friday protected them from the protesters. Sharansky praised the police in his statement as well for their level-headed action under very difficult circumstances. Sharansky's had introduced a plan to resolve the prayer ritual issue at the site several weeks ago. It calls for a major expansion of the prayer plaza at the Western Wall to ultimately include two large prayer areas, one traditional and one egalitarian. Reuters reports that after a 25-year legal battle, Canada has deported a Palestinian convicted of an attack on an Israeli airliner in 1968. Mahmoud Mohammed Issa Mohammed, a former Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine commando, took part in the assault on an El Al jet in Athens that killed an Israeli man. A Greek court has sentenced Mohammed to 17 years in jail in 1970, but he was released a year later in a hostage exchange and came to Canada in 1987 under a false identity. Officials started to try and deport him in 1988, but he managed to stay in Canada by claiming refugee status and had launched a series of legal appeals. Finally, legal efforts, though, paid off, and Mohammed was deported on Saturday to Lebanon. Popular Jewish psychologist Dr. Joyce Brothers passed away yesterday at the age of 85. Brothers pioneered the television advice show in the 1950s and enjoyed a long and prolific career as a syndicated columnist, author, and TV and film personality. Predeceased by her husband in 1989, Joyce Brothers is survived by her sister, her daughter, 4 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. And finally, the Jewish holiday of Shavuot begins tonight. The holiday celebrates the giving of the Torah at Sinai. From all of us here at Shalom TV, Chag Sameach. I'm Teisha Bader, and that's Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, May the 14th, 2013.